Deep inside the ancient grounds, Ryoga finds the spirit of Sora Kashiwagi, the legendary mage fighter who once held the front lines against a monster wave and saved countless civilians. But instead of being remembered as a hero, Sora was betrayed by his own commander, Naruhito Byakugo, who deliberately used him and his men as bait, abandoned them to die, then stole all the glory for himself while every trace of Sora's sacrifice was wiped away. Ryoga digs up that buried truth and turns Sora's pain into a new offer: revenge. He promises to help him settle the score, but only if Sora agrees to become his undead servant. What follows is even crazier. Ryoga prepares a Dragonian corpse as a vessel for Sora's soul, creating a far stronger body than the one he gave him in the past timeline. Once Sora accepts, he revives inside that powerful body, keeps his mage fighter trait, and gains the ability to grow stronger over time. But why is he doing all of this? Humanity was going on with their regular day until monsters started pouring out of gates that appeared without warning, ultimately throwing the world into chaos. However, some awakened abilities thanks to the power of an unknown system, and they were known as hunters, who inevitably saved the world. By conquering these gates, the hunters grew in strength, rising from 1 star to a 7-star rank. Surprisingly, there are 7 hunters who reached the 9-star rank through the grace of the constellations and established the 7 great families that ruled the world. However, our MC, Chinen Ryoga, was an anomaly who became the first human in history to reach a 9-star rank without the grace of a constellation. This didn't sit well with the 7 great families, and the constellations decided that his existence risked bringing about the collapse of the world order. Because of this, they tracked him down to a burning city to kill him. One of the 7 great families made an appearance, resulting in a deadly battle that even cost our guy his right arm. He is sent to his knees while watching his opponent, a dude named Dimitri, sit in front of him to mock him. Apparently, Dimitri is also a 9-star rank hunter, and he is the incarnation of Odin, the Mage King. Ryoga is forced to ask him why he is trying to kill him. He wants to know if it is because he doesn't have the grace of a constellation, or if it is because he refused to serve under the 7 great families. Dimitri tells him that he can just say it is both. Dimitri mentions that the constellations want him dead, so there is little to nothing he can do about this. He mentions that it's going to be weird if someone can grow strong without the constellations. Dimitri mentions that Ryoga is an undying king who possesses power rivaling the 7 great families and the grace of the constellations all by himself, which makes him a threat. In addition to this, Dimitri says the 7 great families already have their hands full just keeping each other in check. Dimitri tells Ryoga that he has defiled the natural order because he is a necromancer, and by manipulating the dead, he has trampled upon the world's stability. He mentions that in a battle between 9 stars, the power of the constellations basically decides the victor, but because he chose a foul power, the constellations have forsaken him. Dimitri tells Ryoga that this is basically the difference between them, but Ryoga berates him, telling him that he can talk really big when he is hiding behind Odin's power. Ryoga then tells Dimitri that he has been conversing with him because he was stalling him, and he is about to show him what he can do. Ryoga then unleashes an overwhelming aura to regenerate the dead bones in the area, raising all of them as undead. Dimitri mocks him, saying he never knew he still had this much power inside him, and because of this, he is going to use his strongest magic against him too. Dimitri doesn't even move from where he is as he conjures a really powerful technique, shocking Ryoga. He realizes that Dimitri is about to use the Eye of Odin, and without a doubt, he knows that his ultimate technique doesn't stand a chance against Dimitri's power. Ryoga watches as a powerful blast of magic travels toward him, but instead of wearing a scary face, he smiles because he has something that he wants to try. Dimitri is surprised that he is laughing, and he notices that there is a weird item in Ryoga's hand. It turns out that it is an artifact that is capable of interfering with time, and it is called Kronos' Pocket. The item detects the power of a constellation, and as Ryoga raises the artifact, the blast hits it, ultimately inhabiting the artifact, fulfilling the activation requirements. This immediately activates a process of regression. Apparently, the activation requirements for Kronos' Pocket Watch are for the player to be a 9-star rank, and to inject the watch with the power of a constellation. Since Ryoga doesn't have his own constellation's power, he figures out that he will just have to borrow Dimitri's own. Dimitri watches in horror, asking Ryoga what he has done. Ryoga teases him, telling him that the power of Odin that he is proud of, he is going to be taking it. Ryoga flips him off, telling him that he is going to crush him and the 7 great families the next time that they meet. Just then, a bright light hits the field before everything goes blank. Soon afterward, Ryoga wakes up in his room, and he realizes that he is back in the house he used to live in. Ryoga is pissed that Dimitri tried to kill him for a trash reason, and he can't wait to get back at him. It turns out that the artifact is now broken because 2 cannot exist within a single dimension, and time cannot be rewound again from the current divergence point. Ryoga is glad that the artifact activated even without the power of the constellation that he contracted with. Apparently, he returned to 23 years ago, which was shortly after he left the orphanage, and it was the same day the system suddenly appeared. Just like back then, the system appears in front of Ryoga, telling him to choose a class suited to him, but the system urges him to keep his innate traits and talents in mind. As for his innate trait, it is known as a clear mind, which provides resistance to all mental attacks. As for his class, he has the option to choose between being a martial artist, a mage, or a priest. Ryoga is not surprised by this because he knows that it is only basic classes that will be available at his current level. Before regression, he actually chose the mage class. but he decided not to rush this time around. However, this time, Ryoga is determined to get even stronger and make sure he survives until the very end. He also plans to make use of the information he gained when he was a 9-star hunter. Ryoga immediately heads to the Natsuhabara hunter market, and the attendant is still pitching the materials they have to him when Ryoga cuts in, telling him that he wants the Ring of Dark Gloom. The attendant is shocked to hear this because this item is a cursed one, but Ryoga assures her that he is aware of it, and all he wants to know is how much the item costs. The attendant then tells him that they won't be responsible for any losses incurred after the purchase if he still wants to buy it. Ryoga understands why the attendant is acting this way because no one in their right mind would pay 2 million for a ring that applies every debuff imaginable. Just to buy the ring has exhausted half of his life savings. Before wearing the ring, the system tells him that equipping it will cause the wearer to be consumed by mental curses. Unknown to everyone, the ring actually has a secret because the one who overcomes the curse within the ring will be granted the knowledge and power of necromancy. Upon wearing the ring, Ryoga finds himself in a dark realm, and he is surprised that the curse he is supposed to overcome is Dimitri. Dimitri boastfully tells Ryoga that he has no chance against him without the power of a constellation because it is pretty obvious that he can't be damaged without a constellation's grace. He mocks Ryoga, telling him that he is a necromancer who has been forsaken by the constellations, and even though he returned to the past, there is no way he is going to defeat him. He fires off an energy blast from his finger toward Ryoga, but Ryoga simply activates his clear mind technique, ultimately blocking Dimitri's attack. With this, Ryoga is able to clear the trial of the Ring of Dark Gloom, and Ryoga awakens the necromancer power residing within the ring. It turns out that the only way to break the curse of the ring is not to resist, and because Ryoga knows this, he was able to become the world's first necromancer. Since he can't stand against the 7 great families without the grace of a constellation, he decides that he is just going to create a constellation that chooses him. And this is the necromancer. Since he has cleared the trial, Ryoga now has one more option among the classes to choose from, which is the necromancer class. This is a class that uses corpses or souls as a medium for power. As a first-class bonus, he is going to gain the Guide of Death trait. This is a trait that reduces spiritual power consumption by 20% when activating or maintaining summoning magic. Ryoga is pleased by this, and he figures out that he has just 2 skills at the moment, which are Raise the Undead, an E-rank skill, and Bone Control, which is also E-rank. As for the Raise the Undead skill, he is able to turn a corpse into an undead without a soul. The Bone Control, on the other hand, gives him what it takes to infuse magic into bones to control them freely. Thanks to the fact that he went back in time, his rank also reset back to the beginning. And even though all the necromancer knowledge in the ring is in his head, he can't use the skills yet. Ryoga figures out that he can't go against the system's level and star rank rules. By following the system, he can reach up to the 7th star, but he can't reach the 9th star, which is the realm of transcendence, by normal means. Ryoga realizes that becoming a necromancer early on isn't enough, and if he wants a chance to defeat Dimitri, he needs a guardian star. Talking about the guardian star, this is a constellation that gives protection to the hunter. Soon afterward, Ryoga packs his bags and heads to the Temple of Kronos, which is an ancient constellation that lost its light after being defeated by Zeus and the Olympian gods. Upon arriving at the temple, Ryoga whips out the broken artifact and smashes it on the altar. This immediately changes the whole scenario, and Ryoga finds himself in the realm of the fallen king of Titans, Kronos. Kronos angrily demands to know who has come to disturb his peace, but Ryoga simply offers his greetings to the dude. Kronos moves closer to Ryoga and notices the artifact in his hands. He immediately asks him if he rewinds time, and Ryoga confirms this. Kronos is impressed when he hears this, saying it is no small feat, but he wants to know why Ryoga woke him. Kronos is Poseidon's father, and he is the god who swallowed his children after hearing the prophecy of the Titans' downfall. However, he was stripped of everything by Olympus and left to be forgotten. Ryoga is confident that he will still hold his beef against Olympus. When Ryoga finally answers Kronos' question, he asks him if he wants revenge. Kronos is stunned by the question, and he asks Ryoga what he means by this. Ryoga simply answers, telling Kronos that he will be able to get his revenge if he becomes his guardian star. Kronos is pissed when he hears this, asking Ryoga if he thinks a mere human like himself can interfere in his vengeance. He asks him if he thinks someone like him can bring down Olympus. Kronos stretches his hand toward Ryoga in anger, but Ryoga quickly speaks up, revealing that he got to the 9th star without any constellation's help, and Zeus is one of the gods he wants to take revenge on. It turns out that Ryoga is looking to take down all 7 great houses, not just the Romanovs alone. Ryoga tells Kronos that if they beat the great families, Olympus would lose its hold on Earth, which would signal the start of his revenge. Kronos tells Ryoga that he is talking about revenge, but what he just mentioned is nothing but a small goal. Kronos tells him that he might be strong enough to activate his clock, but he lets him know that someone chosen by the constellations cannot walk the path of a necromancer. Kronos straight up tells Ryoga that he cannot align with something that defies providence because their natures are completely different. Ryoga agrees that this might be true for the god of time, but it is a different thing for the god of harvest. Apparently, constellations form contracts based on compatibility with one's origin and nature, not strength. Basically, Kronos is the god of harvest and time, and the scythe is a symbol of harvest, which is also the symbol of death. Harvest and death both represent cycles, death, and rebirth, which means they defy natural order. Kronos is pissed when he hears this, and he yells at Ryoga, asking him why he would dare link him with death. Kronos urges Ryoga not to get ahead of himself, but Ryoga tells him to push his pride aside. Ryoga asks him if he wants to live without power or name, while telling him that he is free to remain a stubborn old fart if he wants to continue being under Olympus forever. Ryoga tells him that he came there because he thought he would choose revenge even if it meant changing himself. Ryoga urges Kronos to join him so that they can reclaim their power to crush Olympus. Deep down, Ryoga knows that the only chance he has is for Kronos to join him, and he can't afford to lose this chance. Kronos then smiles, telling Ryoga that he hasn't forgotten about his revenge, but he would have to prove that he can become the force behind it. He asks Ryoga if he is aware that reversing his nature would bring immense pain, but he urges him to endure it, assuring him that he is going to become his guardian star if he can. Ryoga is shocked that Kronos is not even wasting time, and before Ryoga knows it, Kronos stretches his hand toward him to appoint him as his saint. Ryoga is confused by what he means by saint, but before he even gets the chance to think about it, Kronos' power rushes into him. Apparently, a saint receives divine power as a constellation's representative, and because he already has a dark element of a necromancer, Ryoga feels the two forces clashing inside him. Ryoga is strained by this, but he knows that he is going to lose his only chance to get a guardian star if he passes out. Ryoga crashes to his knees, but refuses to give up because he has to endure it. Soon afterward, Ryoga returns to Japan with a smile on his face because he managed to contract with Kronos. Kronos now resides within his mental space, and he is surprised to see just how much the world has changed. Ryoga is frustrated by just how much he talks, since Kronos presently has no followers, no power, and no divine protection. Kronos might have returned as a constellation, but he's been forced into the role of a grim reaper because of the scythe. Ryoga figures out that it is left to him to build everything from scratch so that Kronos can regain his power. Kronos admits that he is excited because it's been so long, and he urges Ryoga to spread his name far and wide since he is now a saint. Basically, a saint is the highest ranking class in the priest line, and Ryoga cannot believe that Kronos basically turned a necromancer into a priest. Ryoga has also obtained a skill, Saint of the White Knight. This is a holy spell that takes away every penalty when using necromancer skills. Additionally, he has the Life Drain, which is a holy spell that absorbs the target's life force and can be used for physical enhancement or healing element. It is basically holy power that has been tainted with death. While priests use holy power that is granted by the gods, necromancers use spiritual energy, and this is Ryoga's first time hearing that one can use them together. Ryoga tells Kronos that using necromancer summons and saint holy skills at the same time is basically a cheat. Kronos then tells Ryoga that he is not just a guardian star because he didn't just choose him as his proxy. It then dawns on Ryoga that it was all planned from the start, and Kronos laughs out loud, saying he was once the God King. Ryoga smiles, saying he might just head to the ancient garden because it is the perfect place to test his new power. Talking about gates, they are a doorway to another dimension, and they are classified as flow, which disappears once the boss and core are defeated. There is also the fixed, which exists permanently, and as for the ancient garden, it is a fixed entry. The requirement is 1 star, and it is a medium-sized gate. Since the ancient garden is a fixed type and has a 1-star entry limit, it makes it easy for rookie hunters to enter. Upon arriving at the gate's entrance, Ryoga notices that the other hunters there are searching for a party. Even though he used to do something like this, it never ended up being a decent team. Suddenly, Ryoga is approached by a party who wants to know if he is interested in joining them. Ryoga simply turns down the dude, telling him that he is fine. The dude is embarrassed by this, and he asks Ryoga if he will be fine alone because it appears that he is a new hunter. The dude's team members tell him not to worry about Ryoga because he was the one who turned down their offer to form a party. Ryoga, on the other hand, is more than happy to be alone because he is going to test out his new skills. Upon entering the ancient garden, Ryoga notices that the environment is quiet, and he knows that the usual pattern is for something to jump out at him. He hasn't finished saying this when a goblin lunges toward him from behind. Ryoga easily dodges the goblin's strike, leaving the monster open. Ryoga then grabs it by the neck, thanking it for going out of his way to get killed. Ryoga activates his inherent trait, the White Knight, thus converting spiritual power into holy power. He also adds the Life Drain to absorb the goblin's vitality. The goblin screams in horror as its vitality leaves its body, and Ryoga realizes that the sensation of using holy power and spiritual power is quite similar. Moments later, Ryoga is done absorbing the monster's vitality, and he drops it on the ground. Just then, Ryoga realizes that his stats have increased, and he is surprised that by draining monsters, he gets to increase his stats. From his calculations, he realizes that by killing 25 goblins, he would have gained 1 level. As usual, Kronos shows up asking Ryoga if he likes his new power, and Ryoga cannot help but admit that it is incredible. Since he now has a goblin body lying around, Ryoga decides to try out his power to raise the undead. He uses his familiar command word, and without any problem, the goblin rises up. He's informed that because the zombie's completion level is high, the goblin's stats have increased by 97.2%. The goblin is rated 1 star, and Ryoga figures out that it can help do the work of 1 person in the ancient garden. Just then, 3 more zombies emerge in the distance, and Ryoga decides to use them as test subjects. He unleashes his zombie goblin on the trio, and it grabs one of the goblins. It pushes it to the ground while biting down on its neck. One of the goblins slashes the goblin on the back, but to their surprise, this doesn't affect the undead goblin. Ryoga mocks the other zombies, telling them that their comrade is now an undead, and it is not going to die, even if they strike its vitals. Ryoga immediately grabs one of the goblins from behind and drains its vitals. Ryoga then tries his life drain on the dead goblin that the undead goblin killed. Surprisingly, it works, and Ryoga smiles because he realizes that it works on a wide range of tolerance. Since this is the case, Ryoga decides to pick up the speed. Apparently, there is a statement passed down among necromancers that as long as one manages to defeat the first one, the goal is as good as half achieved. In other words, creating the first undead is the most difficult part, and once one clears that hurdle, everything becomes much easier. In no time, Ryoga already has 4 undead goblins in his army, and he unleashes them on the other goblins that he comes across. A fierce battle ensues between them, and one of the normal goblins plunges its knife into an undead goblin, and it freaks out when it realizes that this does nothing to take it down. Kronos is not entirely pleased with the status of the battle, and he asks Ryoga if he is going to bring some dignity to the fight. But Ryoga tells him to get used to the scenario because this is how a necromancer fights. Not long after this, Ryoga is informed that he has reached the maximum limit of controllable undead, which is 20 undead. As the battle continues, 3 goblins decide that running is better than fighting. But a fiery arrow suddenly appears out of nowhere, killing the normal goblins. Ryoga immediately orders his undead goblins to halt, and he tells whoever is hiding out there to step out. The trio who had approached him earlier in an attempt to form a party with him steps out, and Ryoga immediately confirms that he knows them from somewhere. Apparently they are the twin shadow hunters, and Ryoga's expression changes to a cold expression when he remembers this. Apparently they were once sent to assassinate him before regression. The twin shadow hunters, Yuma and Yuka Rendo, were renowned as fraternal twin hunters. Ryoga remembers that they were a pain to deal with back then, but at the moment, they don't look strong. Ryoga is not entirely surprised because they are still 1-star hunters. However, he knows that there were only 2 back then, and the last dude appears to be a new member. Kronos tells Ryoga that it is a good option to take out future enemies ahead of time. But Ryoga is not entirely on board with this because he knows that the 2 only took an assassination request, not that they had a personal beef with him. Yuma then asks Ryoga if he is the one controlling the zombie, and Ryoga understands their confusion and shock because the Necromancer class is not yet widely known until a bit later. Ryoga answers the question, saying it is his summon, and Ryoga figures out that he needs people to act as baggage carriers for him, so the group actually fits the part. In addition, he believes that their main reason for becoming hunters is for the money. Ryoga then asks them if they are willing to work with him, and Yuma is confused by the question. Ryoga tells him that he wants to leave the Magic Stone gathering to the party, telling them that the split will be 80 to 20. He reveals that he is going to defeat the enemies so that the trio can make easy money. After hearing the offer, Yuma and his friends turn around to have a discussion about the offer. Yuka tells Yuma that they can't trust Ryoga, and the third guy agrees with her because he has never heard of a hunter who summons zombies. After minutes of serious discussion that feels like forever, Yuma finally turns around, telling Ryoga that they are going to do it. However, he wants the split to be a 50-50 split. Ryoga simply tells him that the best he can do is a 70-30 split, and if they are not interested, they can leave. Yuma has no choice but to accept, and the third guy, Haibara, tries to call Yuma back on his decision. However, Yuma tells him to stop being a wimp, revealing that Ryoga would have killed them if he wanted to. Yuma can see just how confident Ryoga is because he entered the gate without any equipment. He is pretty sure that they are going to earn money if they follow him. Soon afterward, the trio is already exhausted after working so hard in gathering mana stones because Ryoga is not even slowing down. They have managed to gather a mountain of mana stones in no time, and Yuma is left stunned because even though he knew that Ryoga wasn't ordinary, he didn't expect that it was up to that extent. While they are trying to catch their breath, Ryoga is still busy killing the goblins, waiting for the team to come pick up the mana stones. Yuma nervously suggests that they take a break, but Ryoga just continues to create more goblin corpses for them. At this point, the trio admits that Ryoga is no human. Sometime later, Ryoga decides to check out his status since they have cleared out a bunch of goblins. Ryoga is blown away when he realizes that his total stats went up by 212 points in just 3 hours of monster subjugation. Ryoga is pleased that he has the life drain because of how efficient it is, and has made his specs on par with a level 4. Ryoga then decides that it is time for him to go after the boss since his stats have gone up. Moments later, he arrives at the boss's domain where he finds it sitting on the throne with the guards surrounding him. The Goblin King taunts Ryoga, telling him that he has walked into his death, but Ryoga claps back, saying he is basically an idiot who thinks he is the king of the hill. Yuka calls Ryoga back, saying the Goblin Shaman is the boss of the south, and it might be good if they don't provoke him. The Goblin King then orders his soldiers to go after Ryoga to make him kneel before him. At the same time, Ryoga unleashes his undead goblins, and a fierce battle ensues between them. One of the undead goblins gets cut down, but Ryoga simply replaces it by raising another dead goblin. Yuma is left in shock because they are outnumbered, but Ryoga is simply turning the corpses into his summons. Just then, the Goblin King stands up and raises his bone staff while chanting some weird incantations. This then raises other bone staffs that send a wave of valor into the goblins. Their eyes turn red like maniacs, and the Goblin King tells Ryoga that his totem debuffs enemies and buffs his allies. He hasn't finished saying this when one of the undead goblins grabs one of his bone staffs and breaks it in two. Ryoga mocks him, asking him what he was saying. The undead goblins then go after the totems, destroying them to ruin whatever plan the Goblin King has. The Goblin King starts to tremble and he angrily raises his staff again in frustration. He activates a new curse, which is known as the Curse of Madness. This unleashes a strong presence that even scares Yuma and his party members. Apparently, this is a curse that increases the goblin's strength by 50%. The goblins under the king's command get the upper hand and start to decimate the undead goblins, reducing their numbers at an alarming rate. In no time, the undead goblins have been reduced to 8, and Ryoga realizes that the staff was the Goblin King's trump card from the start. The king starts making fun of Ryoga while revealing that the staff he is holding is a bone staff imbued with the grudges of goblins. Suddenly, Ryoga asks the king if the staff is made of bone, while telling him that he just handed him an easy win. Without hesitation, Ryoga activates the bone control skill and directs it toward the king's staff. The king struggles with the bone until it flies off his hand and goes to Ryoga, which immediately disrupts the Curse of Madness skill that was active. To make it worse, the goblins suffer a recoil, which decreases their stats by 30%. The Goblin King watches in horror while Ryoga smiles at him, telling him to try to use his annoying curse again. Since the king wants his staff back, Ryoga decides to give it to him, but in the worst way. He sends the staff in his way like a projectile, and it pierces the goblin's neck, causing it to die. Ryoga drains its vitality and he is surprised to see that it is giving him more stats than regular goblins because he was their king. Just before he drains all the blood from the goblin, Ryoga rushes forward to take some of the blood into a bottle, and he turns to Yuma and his crew, telling them that he is going to leave the cleanup to them. Yuma and his gang cannot believe that they have to deal with an enormous number of goblin corpses. Later on, the team steps out of the gate, and the hunters waiting outside are left in shock by how many mana stones the group came out with. Ryoga commends them for their good work and asks them if they are going to take the mana stones to the shop in Natsuhabara, but Yuma tells him that they are going to handle it themselves to make sure that they get a fair price if Ryoga is willing to leave it to them. Ryoga teases them, asking if they just expect him to trust them like that, and when he realizes that the trio is already feeling bad, he quickly tells them that he was just messing with them. Ryoga then asks how much they think it is going to be if they sell everything, and Yuma says it might average around 6 million. Ryoga pulls the Goblin King staff out of the loot, and Yuma says it is going to be worth very little. Ryoga asks him why, and Yuma reveals that there are restrictions and the options are not that enticing. Apparently, the staff can only be equipped by priests, and equipping it grants immense spiritual power. However, it erodes the wearer's mind. It adds to the spiritual power, but at the same time, only a priest can equip it. Since this is the case, Ryoga decides to take it, and he tells the group that they can deduct it from his share, but Yuma refuses. He tells Ryoga that they wouldn't have been able to obtain it without him, so they are just going to settle the accounts as if the staff never existed. Yuma asks his colleagues if they are fine with this, and they say yes. Deep down, Ryoga is pleased by this because this is exactly what he likes about the team. Ryoga excitedly walks away, suggesting that they meet the next day again. The following day, the story was the same as the day before, and even worse. Yuma crashes to the ground in exhaustion, saying he doesn't even know if he can go one full day because his bag is already full. Ryoga is not ready to push them, and he tells the group that they are free to head out first. After they are gone, Kronos asks Ryoga why he lets the group leave on purpose. Ryoga is surprised that Kronos could sense that he intentionally let them go. Ryoga mentions that he doesn't want anyone watching his next move, and he heads to the north side of the garden. Ryoga soon comes across a bunch of frog monsters, and a fierce battle ensues between his undead goblins and the frogs. However, the frogmen appear to be more sturdy than the goblins as they reduce the goblins' numbers. Ryoga is not entirely surprised by this because the frogmen have higher stats. Ryoga then unleashes the bone staff while activating a skill, Oil Shower. This is a skill that decreases the power of physical penetration damage when attached. The bone sticks into the frogman's body and it angrily releases poisonous liquid from its mouth. Ryoga manages to dodge the strike before letting the staff loose like a missile. However, Ryoga soon realizes that consumption is too high, since he is moving the staff and creating undead at the same time. Nonetheless, Ryoga keeps going as he raises dead frogmen under his wings. Not long after this, Ryoga is informed by the system that he has leveled up to level 6. Ryoga smiles because he believes that at this rate he will be back to his pre-regression state in no time, and he can't wait to go after Dimitri. Moments later, Ryoga heads to what appears to be a ruin with a frogman's heart in his hands. Kronos asks him what he intends to do with this, and Ryoga just tells him to keep quiet because he would like to concentrate. He mentions that something spectacular is going to happen by the time he drops the blood of a goblin shaman onto a frogman's heart. The moment he does, it gives off a weird aura, and Ryoga reveals that he can use this to reach the hidden area that wouldn't be discovered for several years. The system then tells him that he has uncovered the hidden secret of the ancient garden, and he is being transported to the ancient trial grounds. Moments later, Ryoga finds himself in an arena, and the system informs him that he has entered the ancient trial grounds. Apparently, he found this before the regression, and because it was a 2-star rank back then, he couldn't enter. Suddenly, a beam of light appears in front of him, and a monster gradually emerges from it. The system informs him that the trial has a participant limit of 1 person, and he is expected to prove his courage and potential in the trial grounds. Surprisingly, the monster he is going to be fighting is a Dragonian, and he is expected to survive for 10 minutes to be awarded a reward. In the past, it was the constellations that commissioned the Dragon Legion to create the ancient trial grounds in an attempt to select capable hunters. When Kronos sees the monster Ryoga is about to fight, he teases him, telling him that he is not even going to last 10 seconds. Kronos smiles, saying it is time for him to start looking for a new saint, but deep down, Ryoga knows that it won't come to that. Even though his opponent is from the dragon race, it has been weakened to match a 1-star. At the same time, Ryoga doesn't think it is going to be a walk in the park. Just as the Dragonian is about to attack, Ryoga tells it to wait because he wants to run a quick modification on his undead frogmen. Ryoga is banking on the fact that bad guys usually wait while the main character transforms. Ryoga then changes the poison constitution of the frogmen from corpse poison to plague blood. This ultimately transforms them into plague zombies, and Kronos is surprised that the dude is undergoing an impromptu modification. Ryoga boasts about how he was a 9-star necromancer before he regressed, and he tells the Dragonian that it can finally attack him because he is done. The Dragonian dashes toward him, but the frogmen meet it halfway. They lunge toward it and grab it on every corner of its body while biting on it. By doing this, they release poison acid into its body, and the Dragonian doesn't waste time before throwing off the frogmen. However, they have dumped a ton of poison into its system, and Ryoga reveals that he actually converted all the strength stats of the frogmen, which had doubled, into poison. Even though their strength and agility have dropped really badly, their poison has become really potent. Just then, the Dragonian slams its foot on the ground, releasing a massive shockwave that sends the frogmen crashing to the ground. Ryoga is impressed that Dragonian is able to withstand the acid poison, and he quickly activates the staff's defense as the Dragonian charges toward him. The Dragonian swings at him, but the shield around his body blocks the attack. However, Ryoga can feel just how strong the Dragonian is, even though its strength has been halved thanks to the poison. The Dragonian prepares for another attack, and this time, Ryoga activates the bone control skill that pierces the monster's hand. It screams in pain, forcing it to come to a halt, while the frogmen leap toward it. The frogmen start to bite down on its body, releasing a massive dose of poison into its bloodstream. Even though it is already weak, the Dragonian still tries to fight off the frogmen. Ryoga is impressed by his final struggles, but he knows that it has reached the end of the line already. Just as predicted, the Dragonian crashes to its knees, and Ryoga pulls out the bone staff that was lodged in its hand. With the Dragonian unable to move, Ryoga walks up to it and starts to drain its vitality. In the end, Ryoga was able to clear the ancient grounds, and Kronos was impressed that Ryoga could overwhelm a Dragonian with a crude swarm of undead. Ryoga then reminds Kronos that he already said he wasn't going to die. Just then, the system tells him that the Crest of Endurance has been engraved. This is an item that reduces delay time upon taking damage by 40%, increases mana alignment speed by 20%, reduces stagger when taking damage while improving concentration, and unlike Constellation Blessings or support magic, it is a permanent buff. It is basically a supreme grade crest, and Ryoga smiles because he just got something really nice. At the same time, he is interested in the Dragonian corpse, and Kronos asks him what he plans to do with the monster's corpse. Ryoga stores the corpse, saying he is not going to waste it because he plans to make an undead that is even stronger. However, to do this, he is going to need alchemy tools, and he wonders if the alchemy guy he knew around that time has opened his workshop yet. After leaving the dungeon, he heads to the Saitama Prefecture, and he is surprised that nothing has changed, even from before his regression. Upon arriving at the front of the building, a huge explosion hits from inside the workshop. But Ryoga is not surprised because he already knows the kind of person he is coming to meet. The dude then opens the workshop door to let air in, and Ryoga smiles at him, telling him that he has finally found him. Apparently, this alchemist is the one who established the world's first formula for mass-produced mid-grade potions. He also made a name for himself as Japan's #1 alchemist. His name is Shintani Renya, and he is known as the Great Alchemist. Ryoga walks up to the dude and introduces himself, while asking if he has a minute to spare. Renya replies that he doesn't mind, but he would like to know who Ryoga is because he is currently in front of his personal laboratory. Ryoga tells him that he is there because he would like to use his alchemy equipment, and this sends some level of repulsion down his body. Ryoga tells the dude not to be entirely dissatisfied because he is simply borrowing them, which would end in a win-win situation. Ryoga tells Renya that he is currently working on mid-grade health potions, and Renya is shocked when he hears this, asking Ryoga how he knows about it. Ryoga simply walks into his lab, telling him that he is going to help him to stabilize a potion that is unstable. Moments later, Ryoga delivers his promise, and Renya is totally blown away by this. Ryoga understands why he is acting so surprised, and this is because Renya would only discover this years later. Ryoga then suggests that he give it a try, and he cuts himself with a blade. Ryoga then pours the potion on it, and to Renya's surprise, the wound immediately heals like it was never there. Renya is blown away, and he tries to collect the potion from Ryoga, but Ryoga refuses. Seeing how desperate he is, Ryoga asks him if he is curious about the formula. Renya admits that he is, and Ryoga suggests that he lend him his strength for a while if he wants to get the formula. Ryoga assures him that he is going to teach him potion recipes and a lot of other things if he agrees to work with him, but he lets him know that the royalties will be a 60-40 split. Deep down, Ryoga knows that there is no way he is going to resist such a delicious offer. Once they are in agreement, Ryoga brings out the Dragonian's corpse and Renya asks him what it is. He simply replies that he is a necromancer and he is planning on processing the Dragonian's body into a special corpse. Ryoga realizes that Renya is curious about the whole thing, and he suggests that Renya come and help him. Renya disagrees, saying they haven't signed a contract yet, so he sees no reason why he should help him. Renya tells Ryoga that he is only allowing him to use the space while he thinks over the whole thing. Kronos is surprised that Renya is so on edge, and Ryoga lets him know that it is understandable because of what he went through. Apparently, he produced great results as a researcher for the country's largest corporation, Daisei, but his boss took all the credit for it. In the end, he was forced to resign, and this is basically why he doesn't trust people. Kronos is disappointed to hear this, and he talks about how the human world is nothing but betrayal and obsession, but Ryoga reminds him that he and the other gods are not that different. Ryoga then calls on Renya, saying he is aware that he is hesitant to sign because he doesn't really know what he is capable of. Since this is the case, he suggests that he help him out with what he is doing so he can see for himself. Renya reluctantly agrees, and Ryoga hands him a tool while telling him the amount of F-rank stones he should melt and the ratio. In no time, Renya was done with it, and this impressed Ryoga, who immediately concluded that Renya is the right man for the job. Meanwhile, Renya is left wondering what Ryoga is doing with the corpse. Apparently, everything he has been doing is to enhance the undead's performance, which requires layering of formulas and curses over and over. After 3 days of hard work, they are finally done with the panels. While Renya is already exhausted, Ryoga remains active like he hasn't even done anything stressful. Renya is left wondering what type of person Ryoga is because he was able to restart a corpse's heart using mana. Even though Ryoga's methods are insane, he has no choice but to admit that he has the skills. Impressed, Renya tells Ryoga that he is going to accept his original proposal, and Ryoga asks him if he is sure about this. Renya mentions that it would have taken him at least 2 years to finish a mid-tier healing potion if not for Ryoga's expertise. Since he is interested in the progress of his research, he tells Ryoga that he is interested in the deal. Ryoga is pleased to hear this, and he tells Renya that he is looking forward to working with him as his exclusive alchemist, but deep down, he sees him as his servant. Since Ryoga is done with the first phase, he realizes that the next thing is to find a soul to serve as the Eldritch Dragon's core. Ryoga then steps out of the lab, and he calls Yuma, telling him that he has seen the money. He commends him, saying he wasn't expecting him to send every last cent, while asking him if he is up for another gig. Not long after this, the team, which is now known as the Rookies, meet up with Ryoga near the border. Yuma asks him why he came to such a dangerous place, because ever since the Northern Gate broke, the place has supposedly been crawling with monsters. Ryoga smiles, saying he is there to pay his respects to an old acquaintance, and moments later they run into a 2-star orc. The team panics when they see this, as they try to warn Ryoga about the danger, but Ryoga cannot believe that the team is still doubting his strength. He then decides that he is going to use the opportunity to test the processed bones. By using bone control, he sends the bone after the orc, and the orc also throws his spear at Ryoga. However, it turns out to be a bad matchup for the orc as Ryoga easily changes the trajectory of the bone. It pierces the orc's body, and he screams out in pain, but Ryoga still commends him, telling him that he is tougher than he looks because he was actually aiming for his heart. The orc grabs the bone and pulls it out, lunging toward Ryoga, but the rookies step in. Yuma blocks the orc's path with his shield, while an explosion hits the orc. Ryoga then decides to send 3 bones toward the orc, and he fails to block everything, resulting in his fatal death. Yuma is left in shock because he can't believe that Ryoga just defeated a 2-star orc. Ryoga urges the team to look alive because the real work is about to begin. Yuma is entirely confused about the whole thing, reminding Ryoga that he said he is there to pay his last respects. Ryoga raises the orc he just killed as an undead, and he assures Yuma that he hasn't forgotten his mission because the person he is after is in the orc village. Ryoga adds that they are going to make some cool cash, and this is enough to get the attention of the team. Ryoga continues taking down orcs, and in no time, he reaches level 13. Not long after this, the system informs him that he has exceeded the limit for stats that can be absorbed from a single race and can no longer absorb stats from the orc race. Ryoga is not surprised because he wasn't expecting the whole thing to be infinite. Ryoga then suggests that they end their hunt for the day, and just before he even suggests that they set up camp, Yuma and the others have started preparing food. Ryoga teases them, saying they came prepared, and Yuma reminds him that it is already their 3rd day on the hunt. That night, Ryoga tells the team that they will be heading to the orc settlement the next day because his stats have gone up already. Before the trio sleeps, Ryoga puts orcs on guard duty so that they can have a good rest. Ryoga, on the other hand, sits outside the camp to assess the current situation. Since his level has gone up a bit, he figures out that it is time for him to read the newly unlocked knowledge. He then assesses the Library of Knowledge, where he can view the knowledge left behind by the previous Lord of Death. There is a particular book that he would like to obtain the knowledge from, but the system tells him that he doesn't have permission until he meets the requirement, which is level 45 or higher. Ryoga then picks up the 1-star books in the library to start reading them, even though he has already reached 9 stars in his previous life. Without complaints, Ryoga sits down to diligently read the books, and after studying for so long, he is informed that he has acquired a new skill. The following morning, Haibara wakes up to an orc staring down at him, and he screams out in fear. Ryoga teases him, asking him why he is still overreacting when he has been seeing this every day. Yuma then tells Ryoga that the orc actually looks different from the day before. Apparently there is an armor bone around it, and it has even gotten bigger. Ryoga confirms this, revealing that he modified the orcs a little bit. Thanks to the modification, they are now called armored zombies with superhuman strength and endurance. Ryoga had obtained 2 skills, which is the bone armor that allows bones to be transformed into armor to be worn, while the second is squirming flesh. This allows manipulation of flesh attached to a corpse, and convinced that he is prepared, Ryoga tells the team that it is time for them to head to the orc settlement. After a long day's journey, they finally arrive at the orc village, and the orcs immediately prepare for battle the moment they notice that enemies are approaching their dearest village. The first set of orcs is easily taken down by Ryoga, using the bone control skill as he cuts through them with bone. Just then, the orc leader shows up with a battle axe to motivate his team. He gives his orders, and the orc archers fire arrows at the rookies, but Yuma's defense is able to block out the attacks. Yuka returns the favor by firing fiery arrows at them, piercing their skin and delaying their advancement. Kronos is impressed by this, and he tells Ryoga that she is quite useful. Moments later, the orcs finally get the chance to charge toward Ryoga and his team, and Ryoga unleashes his own army of undead orcs. The undead army gains an overwhelming advantage over the regular orcs, and Ryoga is glad that he read the books because he has gained good knowledge from them. As the battle progresses, the orcs start to fear, but Ryoga lets them know that they have not even seen anything yet. The undead orc army charges at the regular orcs, tearing into their bodies like butter. Whenever the regular orcs try to fight back, their attacks are blocked by the bone armor around the undead orcs. Whenever the armor is damaged and the durability is reduced, Ryoga simply uses his skill to repair the durability. He also activates the squirming flesh skill, and pieces of flesh attached to the orcs. This causes their formation to be ruined, and Yuma is left stunned because he realizes that Ryoga is not just strong, but he is in a different league of his own. Seeing how the orcs are being dominated, the orc leader activates Berserk mode, ultimately evolving the orcs into a special variant. Ryoga was already expecting this, and it doesn't really surprise him. The leader of the squad of orcs then charges toward Ryoga, but Ryoga simply meets him halfway with enough bones to turn his body into a basket. The orc crashes to his knees and he tries to pull out the bone in his chest, but Ryoga tells him that there is no way he is going to allow something like that. Ryoga increases the intensity of the bone, consuming even more life from the orc as it screams in agony. While doing this, Ryoga is burning through his mana, and he realizes that controlling 6 bones at a time is no child's play. He figures out that he has no choice, because the orc will regain mobility if one of the bones in him is dislodged. Ryoga figures out that the way out is to pierce the orc's heart in a single blow. Ryoga increases the intensity of the bone effect, draining his mana down to 42%, but just then, the orc finally crashes to the ground. Exhausted, Ryoga wastes no time, using the mana drain on the orc. He is able to recover the mana he has lost, and the moment the other orcs see this, they turn around in an attempt to run away. However, Ryoga is not about to just let them escape as he activates the flesh writhing skill. The flesh that has already attached to their body immediately kicks into action, biting down into their bodies and causing them to fall to the ground. This gives the orc undead army a chance to pounce on them and finish them off. After the battle, green mana stones start emerging from the orcs' bodies, and Yuma talks about how curious he is to know how much the stones will be worth. Ryoga then reveals that the real price is not the mana stones, but the blood axe that the leader was wielding. This is an A-rank weapon that has high durability. It was forged from refined blood, and it is imbued with sorcery that amplifies the wielder's power. Its strength increases the more blood it absorbs. Ryoga smiles as he holds the axe, saying clearing the orc village was really worth it. Ryoga then gives Yuma the axe, telling him that he is leaving it to him. Yuma assures him that they are going to make sure they gather all the mana stones so he can just get some rest. Instead of resting, Ryoga makes his way to what appears to be an ugly tree. He speaks to the tree, telling it to come out so that they can have a chat, but he gets no response. Ryoga is not about to take no for an answer, and he hits the tree with a bone so hard that the tree comes to life, asking Ryoga what it wants. The tree transforms into a humanoid form, and Ryoga greets the dude, who is known as Sora Kashiwagi, the mage fighter. A dark aura surrounds the dude, and he asks Ryoga how he knows his name. Ryoga replies that there is no way he is not going to know his name because he is the hero who held the front lines 35 years back to stop the monster wave from pushing south. It turns out that he actually turned him into an undead before the regression. Apparently, Japan was able to survive thanks to heroes like Sora. He was a powerhouse who made a name for himself on the front lines during the early days of the Great Cataclysm. It turns out that he possesses the talent for both martial arts and magic, which earned him the nickname Mage Fighter. After hearing the praises that Ryoga heaped on him, Sora assumed that his sacrifice was not in vain. Ryoga then tells him that not everyone's name was remembered, and Sora asks him what this means. Ryoga then asks him if he remembers Naruhito Byakugo, who was the submaster of the Aragiri Guild. In a flashback scene, Sora was seen on the front lines with his men, and when he realized just how bad the situation was, he requested backup. His commanding officer was Naruhito, and Sora let him know that there were still civilians in the area. However, his boss lets him know that assistance cannot be sent to his location, leaving Sora and his team stranded. This was when it dawned on him that they planned to use them as bait from the very beginning. Naruhito confirms this with no remorse, telling Sora that it was thanks to him that the main force was able to slip through the northern gate without any issue. Sora also asked Naruhito if he intentionally sent them there knowing that they won't abandon civilians, and Naruhito nonchalantly told him not to be gloomy about the whole situation. Sora angrily smashes the radio, and he tells his team members to protect the civilians instead of abandoning them. In the face of death, Sora and his men carried out their duties, but ended up dying. Ryoga then lets him know that Naruhito ended up becoming a hero, while every record related to Sora was erased. Ryoga casually tells him how tragic it is that he was the one who died, but someone else walked away with his glory. Ryoga teases him, saying he wouldn't have been able to rest in peace if he were the one. Ryoga's words get to Sora so hard that he yells at him in anger, telling him to get straight to the point. Ryoga then boldly tells Sora that he will help him get his revenge if he makes a contract with him to become an undead. Ryoga brings out the Dragonian's body, telling Sora that he has already prepared a vessel for his soul. Sora lets Ryoga know that he had never considered revenge in his current state, but if he is going to do what Ryoga wants, he has a condition. He tells Ryoga that he is free to use him in whatever way he deems fit, but he doesn't want anything to do with harming the innocent. Ryoga remembers the dude giving him the exact same condition before he regressed, which shows that he hasn't changed. This much is expected from a hero, and Ryoga promises the dude that he will do as he said. With the two in agreement, Sora enters the Dragonian's body to become Ryoga's undead. Apparently, before his regression, he possessed Sora's soul with a skeleton knight, and he managed to evolve him into a Hell Knight, but he had always thought of what would happen if he had given Sora a stronger body from the start. Kronos is pleased with Ryoga's insight, as he could see that he strengthened the Dragonian's body in preparation for something like this. Ryoga then reads a special piece of information on the screen, telling him that the undead he just possessed can grow. As the soul grows, it will be able to draw out even more power from the corpse. Ryoga is blown away by this, because this is a trait Sora didn't have when he put him in the Skeleton Knight. In addition to this, he carried along the Mage Fighter trait, and Ryoga asks Sora how he feels in the new body. Sora admits that it is kind of good, but tells Ryoga that it is inferior to when he was alive. At the same time, Ryoga gets a notification that the dragon is incomplete, leaving Ryoga to think of what he did that rendered it incomplete. Nonetheless, he believes that it is a much better start than the last time. Ryoga then calls him a minion, telling him that it is time for them to leave. This gets to Sora, and he refuses to go because he doesn't like the idea of being called a minion. Ryoga asks him if he should call him by his old name, but he refuses, saying he's thrown it away already. Ryoga cannot believe just how annoying the dude is, and he doesn't remember him being like that. Sora starts thinking of a name that will intimidate enemies just by hearing it, but he finds it hard to pick something out. Ryoga then makes a few suggestions from Fafnir to Tiamat, but Sora rejects them all. Minutes later, they are still arguing over what name he should be called, and Ryoga just thinks of punching him in the face. After so much back and forth, he finally settles for Fafnir. As they are about to leave, Fafnir stops Ryoga, saying he is completely bare and has to put something on. He rushes over to the shack beside them and drags off a piece of clothing, which he ties around his lower body. Fafnir finally decides that it is time to leave, and Ryoga is frustrated about just how annoying he is. Later on, they make their way to Renya's laboratory, and he is shocked that Ryoga has managed to get the corpse moving. Renya is so blown away by this that he starts swarming around Fafnir, asking to study him. Fafnir asks Ryoga if he punches the dude in the face because he is really creeping him out, but Ryoga says no, saying Renya is their partner. Yuma and the others also show up, telling Ryoga that they are going to head out to Tokyo to sort out the items that they got, and Ryoga gives them the go-ahead. After they are gone, Ryoga whips out the orc leader because he has plans for him too. Renya asks him what he is about to make, and Ryoga asks if he is curious, but Renya says no, saying his arm almost fell off the last time just from mixing herbs. Before he knows it, he is already mixing herbs again because he simply can't keep his curiosity in check. In addition, he knows that Ryoga is always exceeding his expectations, so there is no way he is not going to be curious. Ryoga then begins work on the corpse, peeling off the flesh on the body, and after he is done, Renya gives him the extract he just finished producing. He then pours the extract on the skeleton to strengthen it, and after he is done, the skeleton gains undead status with 2 shields. Ryoga figures out that the best thing he can do is to make the skeleton his bodyguard. Ryoga tells the skeleton that whenever he is using the life drain, he will be the one to guard him. Renya is not entirely impressed that they have to work with a skeleton, and Ryoga lets him know that bones have huge advantages. He says that they are light and they don't even rot without preparation. Unlike zombies, which have a time limit, the skeleton stays as it is, as long as it continues to be supplied with spiritual power. Since life drain is a close-range skill, he has always needed a bodyguard when activating. Renya is totally blown away by the fact that Ryoga didn't just make a skeleton, but even factored in its maintenance. Ryoga then decides to take a walk, and he tells Renya to keep an eye on the skeleton. Renya freaks out, asking Ryoga where he is going that late in the day, and he replies that he is heading to the Pantheon. Apparently, his level went up, and he has been contacted to come and receive a holy spell. Renya freaks out when he hears this because he never knew Ryoga was a freaking priest. Ryoga tells the dude that he is a devout believer, but Renya disagrees, saying there is no way this is possible even if the world flipped upside down. Ryoga cannot even argue with him, and he simply changes the topic, asking him if he has completed the patent registration for the mid-grade heal potion. Renya tells him that it will be ready very soon, and Ryoga commends him, saying he works really fast. Renya mentions that competition will only grow with time, so he doesn't intend to fall behind. However, the real problem is publicity because the next exhibition isn't until the following year. Ryoga then tells him to give him some samples, promising to promote them if the chance comes up. Renya appreciates this, and he gives Ryoga a sample that he needs, and Ryoga assures him that money will flow in like a river if the sample works out. Ryoga is already imagining how rich he is going to be when this happens, and just the thought of money makes him look really maniac, leaving Renya to doubt the fact that the dude is really a priest. After this, Ryoga decides that it is time to head to the Pantheon. This actually emerged after the Great Cataclysm, and most who gather there come to receive holy incantations and blessings from constellations. There are even constellations that demand offerings from their followers, and as he reaches the entrance to the ground floor, Ryoga is not impressed because he can't even sense any relic that is radiating divinity. At the same time, he doesn't expect this since they wouldn't just leave something valuable lying around. Moments later, Ryoga is already panting from the number of stairs he has climbed. Ryoga makes a joke about how far the stairs are, and Kronos tells him how sharp his tongue is. Ryoga doesn't really care because he doesn't think he is going to be punished for saying something like that. Ryoga then asks Kronos how far the top is, and he tells him that he is basically halfway there. Ryoga tells Kronos that he is not going to take it lightly if it ends up being something that is not worth it. Upon arriving at the top level, the other constellations there start to show disgust and displeasure toward Ryoga. After they are done messing with Ryoga, Kronos decides that it is his turn, and he registers himself in the Pantheon. After he is done with this, Ryoga is informed that he has acquired the holy incantations, which are the Unholy Blessing and State of Retribution. The Unholy Blessing enhances negative energy and boosts target stats. The Stake of Retribution, on the other hand, has a bunch of boring stuff about receiving damage. Kronos teases Ryoga, telling him that he graciously gave him the skills, and Ryoga admits that they are impressive. Kronos laughs out loud, but just then, the system informs Ryoga that Kronos doesn't have sufficient divine status because he lacks achievements and recognition. His laugh suddenly goes cold when he sees this, and Ryoga cannot help but make fun of him for acting all high and mighty before. However, he is pleased that he has grown stronger. Moments later, Ryoga steps out of the Pantheon only to be challenged by a big dude who asks him why he is coming out of the Pantheon. The dude, Satake Shigeru, appears to know who Ryoga is. Ryoga asks him who he is, and he reminds Ryoga that he used to look after him at the orphanage, and after revealing his name, Ryoga remembers him as the trash who used to extort people. Ryoga tells the dude not to talk to him like they are close buddies because he remembers how he treated him back then. It turns out that a dude once ratted Satake out to the director, and while he was trying to beat the dude, Ryoga shows up and punches him in the face. Now in the present, Ryoga teases him, asking him if his broken nose has healed. Satake groans in frustration, but before he loses his temper, he controls himself, saying he is now a different person. Satake shows Ryoga the tag on his chest, revealing that he has now joined the Aragiri Guild. Satake tells Ryoga that he is nothing but a bottom-tier hunter because he just came out of the Pantheon. He also urges him not to think things will go down the way they did the last time. Ryoga, on the other hand, teases him, telling him that he doesn't look different from how he remembers him. This pisses Satake off so bad that he throws a punch at Ryoga, but someone catches his arm, telling him that they are in the middle of the city. This person is the strike team leader of the Aragiri Guild, Jomon Ragu. Satake tries to tell his boss how arrogant Ryoga is, and Jomon suggests that they take the fight elsewhere so that they can settle everything properly. Deep down, Jomon is looking to punish Ryoga for picking a fight with the Aragiri Guild when he knows who they are. Satake laughs at the idea that Jomon is suggesting that they settle their beef with fists, saying Ryoga just became a hunter. However, Ryoga is not about to shy away from a fight, and he tells Satake that he is up for it. Satake is shocked to hear this, and Ryoga uses the opportunity to dunk on him again, asking him if he is already getting cold feet. This is enough to push Satake to say there is no backing out. Moments later, they arrive at the Aragiri Guild training center. The two step into the arena, and Ryoga summons Fafnir, telling Satake that he will be the one to fight, since he is a priest. Satake is not entirely worried as he believes that Ryoga has a trash ability. In addition, he has a necklace and rings that boost his own stats too. After putting everything into the right state, the match is declared open. Satake hasn't even made any move when he is already teasing Ryoga, asking him if he is scared. Ryoga cannot believe just how loudmouthed Satake is, and Fafnir is also hyped that he ran into Aragiri very early on. He decides that he is going to check out how strong his body is, while saying he has no intention of holding back. However, Ryoga tells him not to finish the fight in one hit because there is something he would like to test. Fafnir agrees to this, even though it is going to be pretty difficult. Satake then makes the first move, lunging towards Fafnir with the spear, but Fafnir easily raises his leg to dodge the attack. Satake unleashes another spear technique, but Fafnir still dodges this. Satake goes on the attack again with his insane agility. Jomon is impressed with Satake's movements, believing that the fight will end earlier than expected. Just then, Fafnir casually grabs Satake's spear, teasing him, telling him that such a useless attack will not work on him. Satake struggles, but couldn't drag the spear away from Fafnir, and Fafnir scolds Satake, telling him that he is attacking without even thinking of his next move. Fafnir lets him know that he would have been dead if it were real combat. Fafnir prepares to punch the dude in the face, but suddenly remembers that he was supposed to hold back. Instead of punching him, he slaps him across the face really hard, causing Satake to lose his breath. He falls to his knees to try to catch his breath while trying so hard not to scream like a baby. Ryoga teases him, saying he has grown a bit because he is not screaming for minutes like before. Satake is pissed about how Ryoga is messing with him, and he dashes toward Fafnir with his spear, but Fafnir easily pins his spear to the ground, shattering the ground. He mocks Satake, telling him that his opponent will simply catch on if he uses the same technique twice. Fafnir then proceeds to break his knee, and Satake screams out in severe pain. Fafnir mocks him, telling him that the battle is over. Just as he is about to land the finishing blow, Jomon stops the match. He looks really pissed, and Ryoga is surprised that he stepped in to stop it earlier than he expected. Jomon then walks over to check on Satake's knee while revealing that he would have to call a priest. Ryoga reminds Jomon that a priest is standing right behind them, but Jomon argues that a 1-star healing can't fix a broken bone. Ryoga assures Jomon that he knows it, and Jomon demands to know how he plans to heal the broken bone. Ryoga reveals his plan to use a mid-grade potion, and he brings out the sample that Renya gave him. Satake is skeptical because mid-grade potions cost millions. Ryoga uses the opportunity to market the potion, saying that there is mass production of mid-grade potions. Satake says he hasn't, while trying to say he won't receive help from the person who defeated him. Ryoga urges the dude to just accept it like that because he is only trying to help. Ryoga was already thinking of how he was going to promote the potion, and he just found the perfect test subject. Ryoga then pours the potion on the wound, and to Jomon's disbelief, the wound heals completely. Jomon immediately starts thinking of how he is going to get the potion. Jomon asks Ryoga where he bought the potion from, and deep down, Ryoga is pleased that he already took the bait. Ryoga tells Jomon that he is pretty sure that he is around 3 stars, since he is a captain in the guild, and Jomon confirms this. Ryoga then makes him a wild offer, telling him to fight him, assuring him that he is going to tell him where he got the potion from if he does. Jomon is convinced because Ryoga is willing to tell him regardless of the match result. Ryoga tells the dude that this is what he wants because the last fight was too short. Moments later, the match begins, and Jomon dashes toward Fafnir at blinding speed, delivering fast-paced attacks to his body. Jomon is able to exploit Fafnir's huge body, landing blow after blow. Fafnir screams out in frustration, but can't even get to Jomon. Ryoga is not entirely surprised because he was expecting Jomon to use the fast attack style of Kashiwagi, which is a bad matchup for a Dragonian. This is exactly why he used the potion as a bait to provoke the dude, because if Fafnir encounters an opponent he can't fight properly, he will feel it. Instead of being frustrated, Fafnir is determined to get used to this style of fighting with his sluggish body. Ryoga commends his determination, saying this is why he is his right-hand man. Since Fafnir is determined to win, Ryoga decides that it would be bad for him to stand back. He then bestows upon Fafnir the impure blessing, preparing him for the real battle.